Okay, so in this episode I'm going to be going back to the gas cap, and I looked at it a little more, and I don't know if you guys remember, but in one of the other videos I said that I was going to reinforce it first before I cut the hole and everything. But from the underside I was looking, and the gas cap only comes to about here. If you look underneath, it's still pretty solid there. There's no issues up until around this point. So what I'm actually going to do, so I don't add extra material to the area I'm cutting out, since that will be the gas cap when I'm done, I'm not going to reinforce it until I cut the hole. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the tape measure and a pencil, and I'm going to measure out the exact center line and then extend this bottom line. At Vaydor, they give you a bottom line for where the gas cap goes. So I'm going to go off that, and I'm going to center everything and find the measurements. There's already a line down the middle of the pattern, which they also give you. So I'll be going around that and cutting out the hole. And then take this from, I'll go through the trunk, stick it underneath, and secure this to the body. This is where you reroute the gas to, so you'll now have the gas cap right here. Okay, did some measurements, and I got it all centered up, lined up with the bottom line where it needs to be. I'm going to trace around the outside, and then I can cut it out. Trace the outline, so now I have a pattern for me to cut out. I'm going to go with the Dremel tool along the whole edge and just cut the whole thing. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because you're going to have to shave down the edges a little bit so the gas cap has a gap around it. So it's not too big of a deal if you mess up a little bit, but I'm going to just do it as best as I can. I went on the straight parts with the Dremel and just scored them so I have an easier path to ride the bit through. That way I'm not just cutting through the whole time, and if I mess one up, I mess it up. I carefully went along and just kind of did a quick incision. That way I can go back and cut all the way through there. What I didn't do is around the corners, because the Dremel's not really the right tool for that, so I'm going to figure something out, figure out the right tool to use for around those corners. Might use a body saw, a jigsaw, or something like that, maybe a hand one. But I'm going to figure that out before I continue doing this, and I'll let you guys know what I use. Another thing you have to do before you install this bucket into the new cap area is you take the old cap and you're going to have to remove this hinge, and these two bolt holes will bolt into here, but you need this back of the mechanism to be able to go somewhere. So they already give you this marked out, and there's an X on it, so you just cut that area out so this has somewhere to go, and then you can cut the hinge off of the old gas cap and you can mount that onto the new one and then into the bucket assembly for it. That way you have a working gas cap. You can also install that little trigger lock thing here and you'll be good to go. Now I have the hole cut out for the gas bucket to drop into. It goes from underneath, but you get the idea. And then the gas cap is that section that you cut off from there. That's going to go on top of here. You grab the little button lever thing from the Infinity. You're going to cut a hole for that here and install that. That way you have the push to unlock mechanism for it. And then you take the hinge off of the old gas cap, cut that off, and then you're going to bond that to the underside of the new gas cap, set that all up, and you'll have a good working gas cap right here. Then you're going to install the actual fuel filler hole there and get it all wired up. You'll be good. Yeah. So I have this cut out, and I thought about it a little bit, and I want to actually wait for that until we have the gas line fed, and when we're putting the kit on permanently, to install that bucket, because there's a metal support from the frame that's very close, and if we are a little bit off when putting the kit on, we could break that. So I think it would be a lot better just to wait so we do it right and don't end up breaking things. So now I'm moving on to the trunk. I went underneath, put the trunk down, and found out where these hinges need to go. And I took some 1-inch steel, cut them to about the size of the bracket here, and I'm going to drill out those holes. That way I have a backing plate to go on this side of the fiberglass. The hinge will go on this side, and then I'll be able to bolt through and put the nuts on the opposite side, and that way we're not just bolting straight to the fiberglass. Do that on both sides, and then I'm going to figure out how to bolt the top half to the trunk itself. And for now, I'm not going to be installing the shocks, just because I need to make a new bracket for it, and I accidentally threw away the other ball bearing thingies here. They were on the car and kind of just threw them away as scrap metal, so I don't have those anymore, so I'm going to have to order some new ones and then figure out how to do that. So for now, I'm just going to get the hinges on and working, that way I have a usable trunk, and then I'll mess with the latch and everything and get that to work. Alright, so I have to change the plan a little bit. Our drill bit for the metal broke, and we don't have another one, so I'm going to take it over, and I know someone with a drill press, so we're just going to go use that either tomorrow or the next day, get those drilled out, and then I can install that. So we're moving on to the taillight a little bit. Some stuff you have to modify to get it to work. So I'll do that real quick and then show you what we did. Okay, so as you see, there's a few holes here. We had to keep re-drilling and moving around. It's really hard to test fit this because the bolts, if you get one of them lined up, you can't really see to do the other one. So we were putting paint on the end and just marking it up, but you really can't get it situated perfectly until you have the drill all the way through, because it won't sit flush. So there's trial and error. You just have to keep trying until you get it. So we finally got it to where it needs to be, and we're happy with that. One thing you have to modify is, if you look here, I don't know if you have to or you could trim it on the taillight, but I was looking at some pictures online, and what some other people are doing is, originally this comes all the way up here and it's fiberglass solid there. So cut with either the Dremel, or I end up using a body saw to go all the way through, because this stuff's pretty thick. So cut that out so the corner of the taillight can sit back in there. It wasn't fitting before. Because of that, it was rubbing and pushing on that. So now we can get the taillight through, and all of the bolts now go through enough that we can get a nut on the opposite side. So I'm going to just reverse this process and do it for the other taillight, get those both in and wired up. Have to drill the holes for the wires still. There's just 3 of them, but pretty much got the taillights where we want them. We lined up the area for the grill mesh too, to make sure that it wasn't interfering with that. So all that is good, and it seems to be where we want it. I also did a little bit of work test fitting the door. This is a very, very temporary fit. So as you can see up here, the front is not aligned at all where it needs to be, and this door still needs to come up a little bit. I just have a bolt down there to kind of give me the right spacing, just so we can kind of make sure that the kit's in the right spot. One thing, I don't know if all of them are like this, but if you come look at the door here, This is part of the body and this is part of the door, and there's a different curve. So this is straight on the body and it curves out on the door, so you are gonna have to trim that down, shave it down, and same with this one up here. So I'm gonna have to shave those down, do some body work, and get those to match. And then once I have the kit permanently on, then I'll be able to mount the door up and mess with all of that and get that exactly how I want it. But for now, I just have it taped in there, held in, so I can kind of see what it's all going to look like. I'll take a step back and show you. So overall, it lines up pretty well, kind of how we're gonna want it, and it's really starting to look like a Vaydor, which I like. So that's obviously gonna have to come back off, have to install the doors. You use the Infinity original door handles, install that there, mount the doors to the Lambo hinges here, and there's a trim piece which will cover up that hole that goes here. Still need new wheels and tires, but that'll come later. The front, we just have the clip set on there on some jack stands because it isn't mounted on, so it's not lifted to the right area. Didn't install I took this back off just because I didn't want to interfere, because we don't have that lined up. It was just, we need it farther forward so it could still work on the rest of the kit. But just wanted to line everything up, make sure everything's gonna fit before we start welding and permanently bonding stuff down. So for now, we're gonna work on some smaller stuff until we find a welder and get it started. But I mean, it's still moving along, so I think we're good. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys liked it. More will be coming soon. Thanks for watching.